Hi, this is Patrick. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a basic responsive design website using a fluid container in the newest version of Dreamweaver CC, the 2017 version. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, New, HTML. I'm going to click Bootstrap, Create New. I don't want the pre-built layout, and I'm going to hit Create. It's going to prompt me to save. Okay, so you notice it saved my responsive mid CSS file as well as the Bootstrap. Bootstrap I don't do anything with, so right now I'm going to now save my HTML. I'm just going to save it in the same folder. And so now I'm ready to go. And you notice it has a number of comments, but I'm just going to put my cursor down right in front of the body tag. And I'm going to go up to the Insert panel. I'm going to make sure I have Bootstrap selected, and I'm going to hit Select a Container Fluid. In an earlier video I showed how to do one with a fixed container on the previous version of Dreamweaver CC. This time we're going to do the Container Fluid. And so it's not fully compatible. Do you want to continue? I'm going to hit Yes. And I'm going to put my cursor down in the middle of this. So the first thing I'm going to do then is do navbar, and I'm going to do navbar fixed to top. So next I'm going to do grid row with column, and I only want one column, and I want this nested. I'm going to hit OK. And nested just means it's going to be in my container, but it's going to be after my So you notice that it does the extra small. So I'm going to undo this. And I'm going to drag this out more. And collapse this. And actually I can just go to live view. And you can't quite see it, but I want you to see what happens that if I go to my insert, if I go to do that same step, nested, okay. Let's bring it back. And let's go back to split view. You'll notice that when I come down here, right, that it gives me the large column rather than the small. So I'm going to start that way. So this is basically just a place for my image. So I'm going to bring my cursor back like this, or the panel, I guess. And I'm going to come back here, and within that, I'm going to select a responsive image. I'm just going to hit default, and there's nothing there right now, and that's fine. And then I'm going to put my cursor after this, right? So you see that div there. So, and what you can actually see what it did, and I didn't mean to do it, is it put it in my nav, and I want it actually after my nav. So sometimes when you, especially when you're undoing things back and forth, it can get confusing. So you want to pay attention to where these things end up. So with the cursor after that, I'm going to just repeat those steps. And basically when it's wide, it's basically telling it I want to start with the large layout. Okay, so you can see, see it said extra small, so I'm just going to start this way. And so in this, I'm going to say section, and I'm going to actually just even change that div, at this level to a section. So this is where you can integrate those HTML tags as you see fit. So I'm going to just copy that and do one more. So I'm going to call this left, I'm going to call this right, and then I'm going to copy that once more, and I'm going to call this footer. In this case, I don't need a heading, and you can see that sometimes when I get ahead of myself, I don't finish my code, and you can see errors showing up. So I'm going to put that there, that there. I'm going to come here and I'm going to do some dummy text. So I'm going to copy this into this first one right after here. It's got the paragraph tag already. I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm going to, just to make it seem different, I'm going to separate that as one paragraph. So that's looking good right now. So let's bring this back into view so you can see this all. And let's do a few things here. If I click up here, you can see there's different, here I get to this form. I definitely don't want the search form. And honestly, I don't think I want this drop down either. So I'm just looking. Alright, so that's the fixed. There's that. There's this drop down, so I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do the same thing. So this is that nav bar to the right. Got rid of that. And then I got one more over here. Despite my best efforts, I still have this drop down menu that I really don't want there. So if I start at the top, so you can see where it starts, navbar header, button, and if you're not sure, you can even sometimes just type in stuff to say, okay, I think this is day 1, let's say, and this, let's say, is day 2. All right, and so if I go back to live view, I can see, okay, that's exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to come back to this, and this drop down I definitely didn't want. So you can see navbar right. So I will, and I can even collapse that if I want to. So then I know what I'm dealing with there, and I deleted that. Okay, so that looks good. And this is where you can sometimes start collapsing these to see, all right, did you get everything the way that you really wanted it to? So just glancing at this, this looks pretty good. So I'm going to save all. And it's basically saying, well, we need these other things. And it's like, all right, good. That's fine with me. So what I'm going to do right now, and I did this in a previous one, but I'm just going to go to, I want to put an image in here just so we have something to work from. And because this assignment that this is kind of geared around is the virtual tour, I'm going to do a image of Italy. So I'm just, right now, I'm going to look for something big, because for responsive design sites, you really want, you know, a big image that can go on a massive screen. So I think I've done this one before, so I'll do this one. And right now, I'm not looking at usage rights. I'm just really trying to find something for us to just work on here. It's not to say it's not important to make sure that you have rights to use something. For the sake of this, we're just trying to be fast. Okay, so I'm going to click here. I'm going to go up to my window, make sure my properties inspector's here, and so I'm going to drag this down to its back. And so what I should see, there we go, is the ability where it put in this space holder, but I want actually this Italy image. So you can imagine adding some text there. All right, so we have day 1, day 2, and if you wanted to add more links to this, you'd go up to this day 2, let's say. And this cursor, the scroll bar is really being weird. This is a new version of Dreamweaver, and with any new version, it's likely to have some issues. So I'm just gonna put in day 3, and we'll say day 4. Now this is when, if you know what you're gonna, how you're gonna name files, right? You could jump in here and start doing this already. So it might be that I'm going to name this day1.html, day2.html, day3.html, and let's do day4.html. Now these pages don't exist yet, but we will create them later. We can figure out why it's being difficult here. Let's jump back down to our code and just see, did we miss anything? Which happens at times. Okay, so it's putting in these breaks, which I did not want. Let's get rid of those. Go back to live view. Okay, tour of Italy, day 1, 2, 3, 4. And you notice that this has a class on it because it's the current page. So you'd want to adjust that for each page. But for now, let's leave that as it is. We have this set up, and we have our footer. So let's previewing it. So you notice that we have this standard navigation that it gives me for the responsive site. But what a responsive site, because we used this the fluid container, it goes edge to edge on the screen. So that works pretty good. So you can see that when it gets closer, it expands. We have the day. So now it's just a matter of adding some media queries and CSS to basically adjust this. So because in this big version, I want it to be a double layout. I might even want to add some, margins to my container. So let's open the CSS. I'm going to make sure all select responsive, global, plus. And I don't want that. I want the container fluid. So let's see if it will let us do it again. Enter. I'll even do it here. And 20% left. So make sure it's showing up there. Let's save all and repeat. Okay, so you can see what it did there. So even though it's a maximum fluid, we can still control that line width. Now, 20 I did just because I wanted, if I have a large number, then it's easy to see, all right, that worked the way I thought it should. So that's better, right? But you can see that in this mobile view, maybe I don't want that type of, but I definitely want it in this top view. So that's where media queries might become really important. But for now, let's first start with our section. Let's click on section. So that's section left. I'm going to do responsive, global, select. And so this did the fluid grid road, but I think that that's probably going to actually do it incorrectly. So let's take a look at this and double check what we did here. So we did a section. So I'm going to actually have an ID. I'm going to go down and do the same thing here, ID right. So then if I go back here, rather than doing it this way, I'm going to do right, and then I'm going to say the right one I want width, we'll say 30%. And then left one, width 65%. And this is where I want the right one to float right, and I want the left one to float left. So let's save all and take a peek. Okay, so you can see that there's definitely the right one's not doing it quite right, but it is there. So there's definitely some things going on here. So let's just double check what we have going on here. Just to work down, save all, and let's add a background color. I do this sometimes just to help me start to get the lay of the land. It helps me see, is it working the way that I think? So you can see that the section right didn't quite keep. So what it makes me wonder is, yes. So I can see that I didn't have that correct. And that's why the background color especially just can really help you see, all right, what are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? So there's definitely some margin, some padding that, definitely want to work out here. Just going to copy this for both my sections. So you can see the footer, right, is being a little funny. So usually that always has to do with the clear. So I'm going to select footer. I'm going to make sure it is responsive, global, selector, didn't get it right, so I'm just gonna say footer, hit enter, return, and then down here I'm going to scroll down till I see this. Right, the clear both helps me out there. And while I'm here, I'm going to do some things with text. One of the only times I'll text a line in the center is with a footer, and I usually want my footer to be something smaller, so we'll say 0.8 em. So you get the basic idea here. Now when you're in the mobile view, you really want this to go to one column, but that's something with a media query we can fix. But right now this is pretty good. There are two other little things I would do real quick. I'm going to go to code. The background color of my left I'm going to use as the font color of my right. I'm going to also change this to, we'll say, 38%. Looking pretty good. Nice alignment. Footer looks fine. Image looks fine. Alright, so now let's focus on some media queries. So I start to Google to find some different media queries sizes to work with. And so, you could click on a few of these. And so you could find something like this, let's say. So let's go source code. So I'm going to paste this in here. And so I'm basically going to take this, copy it, and here I'm going to change it. And change it to 100%, float left. Save all. So you can see it's applying it to both of them right now. So that's why I just come back. If I go back here, you can see, for instance, let's take a look at these other two. And this is with media queries. For me, it's just a matter of repeating my steps. So I have these other two, and so the footer might be the same globally, but this kind of left and right is what I want to adjust. And so medium devices I want it that way, but small devices I want that. So let's save all and preview. Okay, so you can see what it looks like here. So I have my two columns the way I want. The media query, the footer looks good. Goes to two columns, right, all the way. And so this, one of the things I mentioned earlier is it might be that I want this container to be different for each one, based on really the margins. So I'm just going to add this to each one here. And I'm going to leave that for these, but it's when I get down here. So let's save all and take a peek. So this looks good, but when I get to this lower one, right, you notice how the side margins go away exactly the way I wanted it. I might even want to take it a step further and say that, the body font with the small device, maybe I want it smaller. So you could play with this. I'm not going to do a lot here, but let's even just do paragraph, right? So it might be that, well, the paragraph font I want to decrease to 0.9 em, or font size 0.9 em, and it might be that I want my H2, and I should have an H1 too, but let's right now font size, maybe I want that to be 1.1 em. And you can look at it over there in real time, right? And so maybe 1.3. I can copy that and adjust it on these others as I want, right? Maybe it goes to 1.4, and maybe it goes to 1.5. So I'm going to apply source formatting, clean that up a little. I'm going to save all and take a preview. Okay, so you basically see that you can see what this font looks like, and you can see it adjusts a little. The H2 doesn't adjust really the way it probably should. So I'd have to play around a little more. I'm going to double check this a little more. I'm going to change this to 0.16 for large, 0.12, and then we will go 0.11. So now that, let's say that's working the way I want, the next thing that I would do is I'd create my other pages. So if you remember, I have a day 1, day 2. So really this first one I'd probably even, oops, let's hit cancel. Let's make sure we're on source code for the HTML. And I might rename this one as start. So there's start. I'm going to close that. And then with start, I would probably want to go through and change each one of these, but I'm going to right now do day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. And I, definitely want to change the title for each of these. I'm not going to spend the time doing that right now, but what I want to do is this last part. If I look at day 1, let's just go straight to code view. I can see this class of active, so I want to change that for whatever page I'm in. So this is day 4, so I would add that here. Do the same thing here. This is day 3. Day 2. Actually, I want that on day 1, so let's leave that. And then let's go to start, because this is basically the home page, if you will. Add that here. And each one of these actually it probably should be fixed on, but let's save all and preview. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and you should see it changing with either of these, but it's this tour vidly that we didn't fix on each. So what I'd do is I'd go back to right here. Let's paste that in there. Paste that in there. Save all and test that once more. Okay, it doesn't go anywhere. This brings me back. So you can see that it doesn't have the class active isn't working quite right. So we'd want to play with why that is. It's likely due to the fact that this class active was meant for a ordered list, where right now it's showing up as not. So we'd have to figure out why on this start page it's not working, but for the most part what you've seen in this video is a real quick way of showing you how to create a responsive design using a fluid grid or using a fluid container. We didn't quite use the full features of fluid container because we put a margin on the left and right. Usually a fluid container would go edge to edge, but hopefully this gives you another idea of how to create a real basic responsive design site using Bootstrap in Dreamweaver 2017. Thanks.